Hello everyone, Usman here, back with another video. So today I am going to be doing a continuation of my top 10 favorite Marvel video games of all time, I guess. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment giving me your thoughts about my list in general. Did any of my video games make your list or your favorites or whatever else like that? So don't forget to tell me that down below. So starting with number 5 is Spider-Man 2002. It has the same gameplay mechanics as these two other Spider-Man games that were created by this one gaming studio called Neversoft. Those games came out for the PS1. Spider-Man PS1 that came out in 2000, and then Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro, which came out in, I think, a year later. Spider-Man 2002, the movie game, it's based off the first Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire. That game has the same mechanics as those two Neversoft games. So, the same with the web swinging and if you jump down below to the city, then you die, and it was by level, and then even the fight mechanics and everything like that was the same. I guess I grew up more with this game, with Spider-Man 2002, the game. It was a fun little game. It's not the best game, but I thought it was a fun little game to play. The levels, the level design, like I said, very much like the other Spider-Man games I mentioned by Neversoft, but the levels were fun, getting to basically just, go from different sort of areas like rooftops and everything like that, and just by fighting a bunch of bad guys and shooting webs at people and just doing a bunch of cool Spider-Man action. The stealth levels were probably very tricky because I remember when I played the stealth levels, we're in, I think, an Oscorp tower, and so you had to go and hide behind these very dark lit sort of rooms or dark parts of a room. You had to deal with probably about 2 guards or something, and I always found those to be kind of a little tricky, kind of. But also it didn't seem that bad though. Also another level that made me very anxious in the game was the Vulture clock tower level. That was where I met the Vulture, and there was you had to go run up a clock tower, and he kept on throwing a bunch of bombs and all these other crazy sort of things at Spider-Man, and then I would have to jump up and avoid them at all costs. That was probably one of the harder parts of that game. I have to just get out of the way, make sure I don't get hurt, and it was more trickier, I think, than the Vulture boss battle itself. But it was still fun. Green Goblin was also a playable character as well. You could enter in a cheat code in the game, so you could play as Green Goblin. So you got to play as Harry Osborn, his son, not Norman Osborn, and they gave you a little storyline or something with Harry, where it's okay, I got to figure out what was going on with my dad and all these weapons and stuff like that. I don't know. It doesn't end up in the wrong hands. That's kind of what I remember. But I remember when I played it when I was younger, I used to love playing as Harry Osborn. As the Green Goblin, because I'm and you got to go through the levels very easily without getting very easily, unlike Spider-Man. I feel with Spider-Man it took time, you could easily get beat, but then when you were the Goblin, then you wouldn't get beat at all. You were just okay, let me throw a pumpkin bomb at somebody, let me just go use this weird running mechanic where I run towards somebody and then they fall over. The Green Goblin has so many different toys and weapons and equipment. It's okay, well, they're gadgets, so it just makes everything more easier. There were these golden spiders that you could collect around the game, just how there were red and blue spiders. Red was obviously for the health, so you can get a health boost. Blue was for the web fluid, so it's psst. The golden spiders were for different combo moves, collecting new combo moves, a new kick or a new a set of a new set of kicks, or kicking somebody or punching, or you could use your webs for a combo move. I always liked that in every new level that you were in. You got to collect it and then you got to use it, so that was cool. The web zipping, I think, was probably also really good in this game, and getting from point A to point B. I think you got a chance to target your web zipping or something like that, so you could be okay, let me just web zip to this one specific area, you'll be fine. It was kind of it was very handy in one of the missions when Shocker was shooting his shockwaves at you, and then you basically had to find a way to avoid the shockwave. So you're okay, let me web zip to this one area, and then so that was when the web zipping mechanic came in handy. The Norman Osborn Green Goblin, the main Green Goblin of the movie and of course of the game, he was a very interesting boss battle. He was very tricky though, because when you fought him, he just was not easy to. He had hand-to-hand combat trainings. It was hard to even fight him at times. But yeah, if you collected all the other combos, those golden spiders, then I think you would have been able to go up against him well. So I think he was probably the trickiest one in the game, if I had to be honest. Very memorable game in my opinion in terms of that, but obviously not the best. My number 4 is Incredible Hulk Ultimate Destruction. This to me is like the best Hulk video game that we've ever had. The gameplay was incredibly fun. It followed like the roots of the character and like destruction that he was unleashing amongst like everything. And there were like no limits to what you could do. You could literally just do anything as the Hulk. You could pick up a car, you can throw it somewhere, you could literally just like, run and just smash things, just like what the Hulk does. So, there was all you could do. Abomination I think was like the main villain of this game. You had to fight the Abomination. I think I like that boss battle amongst all the other boss battles that they had in this game. Specifically the first time you fought Abomination when he was just like a normal size. At the end of the game he was like a giant version of the Abomination. That one we fought, or that I fought in the first level, the first boss battle I had with him was like my favorite. I was excited. That's what I felt. Excitement to fight him. The combat was incredible. It was a great demonstration of the Hulk's like, abilities and, his overall sort of like his strength level. So you got to do like a cannonball. You got to like, do like a jump up in the air and like, I don't know, like probably just do like a crazy like super crazy smash thing, or you got to do a thunderclap. So there were so many individual things that you could do as attacks that you could use when you were the Hulk, and that was very, very effective and fun to use when you were like fighting like enemies that were bigger than the Hulk. Free roaming was great. It was basically a free roaming type of game. They had like special jump markers across like different areas that you would go into the game. So you would be at a desert, the Badlands, then you would be like, I don't know, maybe in New York, I guess. So that was cool, like just jumping to different areas rather than staying in this one area in the game. So that's what I really appreciated about the whole thing. And I really liked the jumping mechanic in the game. You could run as the Hulk, and then you could basically just like turn green. I mean, like when you press one of the buttons, I think it was like a press B on the Nintendo GameCube controller, which I played it on. Then you could basically just turn green and jump up high and keep charging your jump and charging it. So that's what I really liked about it. Great jumping mechanic. Very much used that. That's kind of how Hulk gets from point A to point B, which I appreciated. The graphics were really good for what it was. I think it still holds up today. I mean, there probably are some like little graphics sort of like a little bit dated, but for the most part, I think it does really hold up today. It holds up today in graphics wise, and then in great gameplay is amazing. And I like the cutscenes. The cutscenes were cool, giving us more insight as to like what the story is and who is Dr. Banner and like his struggles as the Hulk. Him going up against Abomination, him trying to find a cure. I hope that eventually, if they ever get the chance, like Insomniac was basically making like that new Spider-Man game and Wolverine game, and they made the Miles Morales game. I hope they can make a Hulk game as well, because a lot of people are like, they are great with the Marvel games so far. So if they end up making like a Hulk game down the line, I think that would be great. Maybe copy some elements of the Incredible Hulk Ultimate Destruction and just make it so much more like the character, like this game did. If you get the chance to play this game, play it. Coming in at my number 3 is Ultimate Spider-Man. This game is based off the Ultimate Spider-Man comics that I think came out like in the early 2000s, which I think I read some of. I think it's one of the most creative and sort of colorful Spider-Man video games out there, mainly because they use like specific types of like different art style. Like they use cell shading from the comic books, which is very much like prevalent in this game. I like the Johnny Storm racing missions, specifically the first one, like where it was part of the game. The other ones that I did afterwards with the Baxter Building, those were tricky because like he's more of an air-based character because he can fly. Spider-Man, he needs stuff to cling on in order to anchor his web so he can get from wherever he needs to go. So that was just those parts were tricky, but I still really liked the Johnny Storm racing missions. That was cool. Integration with the other Marvel characters, which I appreciated. The Beetle boss battle was difficult, but I actually managed to figure it out because you had to fight him twice, because you had to fight him with Spider-Man and Venom. When I fought him as Venom, it was difficult, but then I found out a way to fight him, and that was always the one level, and then probably as among like a bevy of levels in this game that I found difficult. The city goals that you played in the game, like where that was what you needed to play in order to progress later on in the video game. Those were not bad. Like you got to do just like simple, like, okay, let me just stop this criminal, or let me go bring somebody to the hospital. Those were kind of cool. I liked those city goal missions. I liked those quite a bit, and I liked it that it was able to progress in the story, so that way you can just like, okay, you unlocked a new story mission, so go there and then do that. I like that a lot. Rather than just like, let me go to this one mission, and another mission. You have to unlock it by doing these things. It gave the player more to do. Venom was the easiest boss battle ever. You also get to play as Venom in this game, which I thought was really cool. And, you never really get to see that like ever in these Spider-Man games as much, where you get to play as another character, unless you're doing multiplayer. So this was not multiplayer, but like there were literally missions where you get to play as Venom, which I really liked, and I liked his skill set in the game. And I like how they introduced Carnage. Carnage was cool and neat because he's another symbiote, so people wanted to see that, and he was one of the boss battles in the game, and he was not that awful or like hard to beat, actually. Like, I mean, sometimes he would be, but he was actually not that bad. Coming in at number 2 is Spider-Man 2, the movie game. This game is, I think, probably the first Spider-Man game I ever bought, like ever in my life. first free roam Spider-Man game like ever out there, to be honest. I think before they used to just be by levels, and I think this is the first Spider-Man free roaming game, like go around the city and just like go to the Statue of Liberty and everything like that. And this is based off the iconic Spider-Man 2 movie that came out the same year. It was just awesome. I thought the combat was great, just action-packed for a game like this. The voice actors coming back from the movies, that was pretty neat. Tobey Maguire, all those kinds of guys. I think Tobey Maguire was like the constant voice actor who came back for all three of the Spider-Man video games. You know, the Spider-Sense mechanic was very like well utilized and cool in this game. I also appreciated that there was like a part in the game where you got to like, where yeah, the Spider-Sense was utilized, but you get to like slow it. There was like a slow down sort of thing you could do, like you could slow down. I think it was like a spider reflexes type of thing mode where like time is slowed down in the game, and then you can see that an enemy is about to attack you, and then you could be like, okay, let me get out of the way with the spider sense. So that was really nice. It was also very helpful in the boss battles as well. I mean, the boss battles, I think, were probably very challenging. The one I think that was not challenging at all was the Rhino one. The Rhino boss battle was like the easiest one. He just was going to throw something at you, or he was going to be like, okay, let me do like, and then all of a sudden you had to just dodging it. So that was the easiest boss battle I think I've ever like beaten in a Spider-Man game. The web swinging was great. I love the animation, just like all the different animations and cool stuff like flips and everything that you could do with Spider-Man. I actually always loved doing that when I was web swinging in the air. There was also like, you know, a part in the game where you got to fight like a bunch of Spider-Man's villains and all in one thing. But I think that was probably like in a part in the game where like it was at the end of the game as well as it was in a warehouse. That was a challenging level, but fun nonetheless. The Mysterio and Quentin Beck missions, I think, were my favorite memorable parts of the game. I think that's like my favorite Mysterio sort of mission. Like I like how you get to go up against Quentin Beck. He just challenges Spider-Man to different sort of challenges, and then Spider-Man ends up beating him in that. Again, and I always used to find those kind of difficult when I was younger, but I managed to beat them. And then you got to do like the Mysterio sort of things where there's like illusions and everything. So I always found that to be one of the best parts of the game. Like, you know, just like the Mysterio Quentin Beck challenges in the game. Always fun. Overall, very fun and immersive game. Probably one of the best Spider-Man games. And I used to play this game a lot. I used to play it so much when I was younger. Like, it was probably like, it was ridiculous how many times I used to play this game. But a lot of these games that I'm mentioning right now, I used to play on the Nintendo GameCube. So coming in at number 1 is Spider-Man PS4. I think this is the best Spider-Man like game out there. It just is probably the best Marvel game out there right now. It had a great story, very sort of like emotional type of thing. You felt things about the characters. You felt for the characters. I thought that the voice acting was phenomenal by one of the voice actors, Yuri Lowenthal, who voices Spider-Man / Peter Parker. I thought he did a great job in that, and he's definitely like on the top list for me as one of the best Spider-Man voice actors ever. The gameplay was fun. Can be repetitive, but then again, I don't think I mentioned it for the other games, but yeah, they could, even in the other games, they could be repetitive, but it's fine. The boss battles, as usual, were great, very challenging, specifically where you had to fight like 2 villains in one level. That was like probably the most hardest one of all, specifically the Rhino and the Scorpion one. I had to play that multiple times. I wish I could have played the side missions and the DLCs. I never got a chance to play it because I don't actually have like the PS4 console. Maybe one day, but you never know. Maybe, but I always wanted to play that sort of thing. The web swinging, I think, held weight. Like you actually get like when you were playing as Spider-Man doing all the web swinging mechanics. I held weight in the sense of like, I don't know, you felt something as that. Like you were like, okay, cool. I'm going from this place gracefully from one point to another. I just thought that this was like the most graceful, I think, for that kind of version of Spider-Man. I think this is an original story. Like it's not something that was based off the comics. I mean, I think they took inspiration from the comics, but for the most part, I think it's like an original story, not based off a movie. So I really loved that aspect of it. Just a different iteration of Spider-Man, which I really appreciated. I would say that I think the Miles and MJ, Mary Jane, the missions that they had in the game were kind of boring. I appreciated it for what they were doing, but then I just thought they were kind of boring. I was like, I wanted to see more. See what else they could do. You have more fun when you're Spider-Man swinging around. But either way, I think they were fun in their own rights, I guess. They wanted to switch it up. The puzzles were kind of hard and annoying as well, like when you had to go to like Dr. Octavius's lab and basically just like solve these like little puzzles about like, okay, how can I fix his weird brain thing that connects to his tentacles or something. Like that was the thing that was always like his neural inhibitor type of thing or whatever. So that was always kind of annoying. But I kind of liked it in that respect because I was just like, oh, it's challenging me in a good way. Like, you know, I'm getting to use my brain more than I've ever thought I could ever use it, like in a Spider-Man game, probably in a video game ever. So I guess there's an educational aspect to that whole thing. If there's anything else I could say about this as well, is I think the score is perfect in this game. It's really, really good. It's like the most memorable Spider-Man score you could ever like listen to ever. Like I usually say that about like, you know, the movies and how they have memorable scores. This game has a memorable like score. PS4. So, and I loved it. So that's why I would say Spider-Man PS4 is my number one, even though I did have those little gripes. Those are my my favorite Marvel video games of all time. Leave a comment down below, as I mentioned before, about all that, stuff. Whether you like the games that I mentioned, didn't like them, what is your favorite Marvel game or Spider-Man game of all time, you let me know. I'll see you next time.